Before we dive into this chilling tale, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories. You won't want to miss the true, dark accounts I'm about to share. So sit tight and let's begin. It's 10:23 p.m. on a Friday in the middle of summer in the quiet city of Midwood, a place where nothing really happens. The streets are empty, save for a few late-night cars and the occasional pedestrian on their way home. I'd been sitting at my desk for hours, staring at the same old screen, scrolling through endless profiles on MatchSync, a dating app that promised to help me find my perfect match. At first, I didn't believe it. Dating apps always seemed like a joke to me, another way for people to waste their time and pretend they were looking for something real. But after the breakup last year, I felt the need to try. Maybe it was loneliness, or maybe it was the hope that something could be different. I'd tried a couple of other apps before, but nothing ever clicked. They were all just games filled with fake profiles and conversations that felt shallow. But MatchSync was different. It was designed to match people based on everything about them: interests, personality, even their deepest desires. "We know you better than you know yourself," the app promised in its welcome message. It sounded like one of those cheesy lines you'd see on a commercial, but I was too tired of being alone to care. I filled out my profile, nothing too fancy, and waited. The first message came a few hours later. I wasn't expecting much, honestly. Just another random guy trying to make small talk. But Ethan's message was different. It wasn't the usual, "Hey, how's your night going?" or "What's up?" Instead, it was something that made me pause. "I've been thinking about our first date. It's funny how the best things in life always come unexpectedly, isn't it?" I didn't know what to make of it. It wasn't like any message I'd ever received. It felt off, but I figured maybe he was just being unique, trying to stand out in the sea of typical messages. I looked at his profile again. He was charming, handsome, tall, with a slight smile that made him look friendly but mysterious. He seemed too perfect. Maybe that's what caught my attention the most. Perfect. At that moment, something weird happened. My phone buzzed again, just a notification from the app. But when I looked at the screen, something was strange. Ethan's profile picture changed. The smile was gone, and his eyes were darker, almost cold. I blinked. Then the image flickered back to the original photo. It was as if it was a glitch or a trick of the light, but the unease settled into my chest. I pushed it aside. It was just an app, nothing more. I tapped my response. It's definitely the unexpected ones that are the most interesting. "So what are you thinking for our first date?" His reply came almost immediately. "I've already planned it. You'll love it." I felt a chill run down my spine. It wasn't just what he said, but how fast he responded. Like he knew what I was going to say before I said it. I shook the thought away. Maybe it was just a coincidence, or maybe he was just a fast texter. It wasn't unusual. I was overthinking. I had to be. I sat back, trying to relax. But the app kept buzzing, and as much as I tried to focus on other things, my mind kept going back to that moment. The strange feeling I got from the app, from Ethan. Something didn't feel right, and I couldn't shake it. But still, I told myself I would see this through. Tomorrow, I would meet Ethan, and whatever this was, I was going to find out what he was really about. The next day, I woke up to a message from Ethan at 9 a.m. It was a simple text, just like the others, but somehow it felt different. "Good morning. Can't wait to see you tonight." That was it. Just those few words, yet they felt loaded with meaning. I stared at the screen, the words almost pulling me in. I had no idea why, but something about his messages seemed to linger in my mind longer than they should have. I shook it off. I'd met strangers before, through friends, at bars, at work. It was nothing new. But as the day dragged on, the odd feeling kept gnawing at me. I tried to distract myself by going about my usual routine work, Errands, a quick coffee at the cafe I always went to, but the thought of Ethan never left. Around 7 p.m., as I was getting ready to leave, I received another message. "I'll be there soon. Don't worry, it'll be just like we've known each other forever." I paused. This was the first time he mentioned something like that. It felt too familiar, too intimate, especially considering we had never met. I quickly glanced at his profile again, hoping to get a better sense of who he was. But something was off. His pictures were still the same flawless, pristine, but now they seemed too polished. It was almost like they were edited, touched up in a way that made him look unreal. I couldn't put my finger on it. I told myself to relax. Maybe he was just a photographer or someone who paid a little too much attention to detail. But the nagging feeling persisted. By 8 p.m., I arrived at the cafe. It was a little run down, tucked in a quiet corner of the city, a place I'd passed by dozens of times but never actually entered. There was something eerie about it, though, like it had never quite fit in with the rest of the city. The lights buzzed softly, the tables were spaced too far apart, and the air smelled stale. It wasn't the kind of place you'd expect for a first date. I checked my phone. There was no message from Ethan. I figured I was just early, but the emptiness of the place began to make me uneasy. I walked up to the counter and ordered a coffee, hoping the warm cup would calm my nerves. As I waited, I couldn't help but glance around the cafe, hoping to spot Ethan. But all I saw was an older man sitting alone in the corner, his face hidden behind a newspaper. Time passed. I looked at my phone again. No messages, no calls. I had no idea what to do. The whole situation felt wrong. My phone buzzed suddenly, making me jump. It was a message from Ethan. "I'm right behind you." My heart skipped a beat. I turned around, half expecting to see him standing there. But there was only the man with the newspaper, sitting silently in his corner. I took a few steps forward, looking over my shoulder again. Still no one. A soft chill crawled up my spine. Something wasn't right. My phone buzzed again, this time with a different notification, an update from MatchSync. It was just a notification, saying the app had updated its terms of service, but as I checked it, my screen flickered for a split second. I thought it was just a glitch, but as I stared at the app, I noticed something even stranger. Ethan's profile picture had changed. His smile was gone, replaced by a cold, blank expression. His eyes looked darker, unnaturally so. I shook my head, trying to clear the thought. Maybe it was a bug in the app, but the feeling of unease was creeping up again, stronger this time. I walked out of the cafe, looking down at my phone as I moved. I tried to convince myself to head home. Maybe I'd gotten the time wrong. Maybe Ethan wasn't even coming. But as I stepped outside, I felt something. A presence. Someone was following me. I quickened my pace, my footsteps echoing in the empty street, and glanced behind me. The street was empty, yet the sensation of being watched was unmistakable. As I turned the corner, my phone buzzed again. It was another message from Ethan. "I can see you." My heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being hunted. Something was wrong with Ethan. Something was wrong with the app. And I had no idea how deep this rabbit hole went. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was closing in around me. The air felt heavier now, like I was walking through a dense fog, even though it was a clear night. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see someone lurking behind me, but each time I checked, the street remained eerily empty. My phone buzzed again, and I almost didn't want to look. But I did. "Stop running. I'm right here." I froze. The message came through so fast, it almost felt like Ethan was right beside me. I didn't understand how he could know exactly where I was. I wasn't sure what was happening, but I knew it wasn't normal. My hands shook as I pressed my thumb against the screen, trying to type a reply, but my fingers felt numb. I wanted to scream, but I didn't even know what to scream about. There were too many questions, too many things I didn't understand. How could he be so certain of where I was? Why did it feel like he was already in my head? I quickly turned into an alley, hoping it would lead me to a more populated street. Maybe I could find anyone who could help. But as I walked down the narrow passage, I heard footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate, matching my pace. I glanced back again, and there he was standing at the other end of the alley, just watching me. My heart raced. The man from the cafe. The one who hadn't moved at all when I first saw him. His face was obscured, but I could feel his gaze on me, cold and unblinking. I didn't know what to do. My body was frozen, a primal fear taking hold of me, yet my mind raced, trying to piece everything together. Ethan was real. He had to be, but why was he showing up as this strange man now? And why did everything feel off? The app, the messages. The way my phone kept buzzing at just the right moment. My phone buzzed again. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. Let's talk. I stared at the message, my fingers trembling. There was no way I could meet him now. This wasn't a normal date anymore. It wasn't a simple app match. Something had gone horribly wrong, and I needed to get out of there. I turned quickly, sprinting down the alley, my breath heavy, my heart pounding in my chest. The sound of footsteps behind me grew louder, faster, like someone was chasing me. I looked over my shoulder and saw the figure gaining on me. I could almost hear the sound of his shoes hitting the pavement, matching my rhythm. I was no longer just running, I was fleeing for my life. I dashed into the next street, my mind racing, trying to figure out where I could go. There had to be someone around, someone to help. But the city seemed silent, like everyone had vanished, leaving only me and the man following me through the night. I finally reached a street with a few scattered lights, my legs burning from the sprint. I glanced behind me one last time. No one was there. The alley was empty. I stopped, gasping for breath, trying to steady myself. The street was still quiet, but I could feel the panic rising again. I looked down at my phone, and to my horror, Ethan's name flashed on the screen. He'd sent another message. I'm inside your mind now. You'll never escape. The message didn't just make me uneasy, it terrified me. What did he mean? How could he be inside my mind? How could he know these things about me? Things no one else could. I turned the phone over in my hands, unsure of what to do. But before I could think, it buzzed once more. This time there was no message. Just a strange notification from MatchSync. It read, "Your match is ready for the next step." I didn't know what that meant, but I didn't want to find out. I ran, not caring where I was going anymore, only knowing I had to keep moving, keep running, away from him, away from whatever this app had become. I didn't even feel safe in my own skin anymore. My mind was spiraling. Didn't know how long I ran for. My legs ached, my chest burned, and every step felt like it was pushing me deeper into some nightmare. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't dare look at it. I shoved it deep into my pocket, hoping it would stop. But it kept buzzing, each notification more persistent than the last. I turned a corner, finding myself in an area of the city I didn't recognize. The streets were narrow and dimly lit, and the buildings around me seemed almost abandoned. The quietness of the place was unsettling. I had no idea how I'd ended up here, but something told me I didn't want to stay. I looked over my shoulder. Again, the feeling of being followed hadn't gone away. I felt it crawling under my skin, like there was something lurking in the shadows just out of view. The air was thick, and the faint smell of decay hung in the air. I could feel my heartbeat quicken, the sense of being trapped closing in on me. That's when I saw it. A dark figure, standing across the street, staring at me from a distance. His face was hidden in the shadows, but I knew who it was. Ethan. I didn't stop to think. I turned and ran again, this time with all the strength I had left. My breaths were shallow, ragged. I could hear the figure following, his footsteps light but unmistakable. I could feel his presence closing in on me, step by step. My phone buzzed once more, but I ignored it. If I looked at it now, I was sure I'd lose. Whatever shred of sanity I had left, I turned another corner, only to find myself in a small square. It was surrounded by tall, dark buildings, and the streetlights flickered, casting strange, distorted shadows. I stopped, gasping for air, trying to gather my thoughts. I had to think. There had to be a way out of this. But the fear clouded my mind, and I couldn't focus. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again, this time with a message from MatchSync. The screen glowed, and I hesitated. I had to look. I had to understand what was happening. I unlocked my phone, the dim glow of the screen illuminating. My trembling hands, I opened the message, and my heart stopped. "Your match is complete. You belong to me now." The words sent a shock through my body, as though the message was a physical blow. The app didn't just match us. It had done something terrible. I was no longer just a person using the app. I had become part of it, part of the system, part of Ethan. I looked up, my eyes darting around. The street was empty again, no sign of the figure. But the feeling of being watched, of being trapped, was stronger than ever. I started backing away, my legs moving on their own, almost as if my body was reacting to the app's pull, like it was controlling me. And then I heard it. A whisper just behind me. "You can't escape." The voice was soft, almost too quiet to hear, but it chilled me to my core. I whipped around, but there was no one there. Just the darkness, stretching out in all directions. My phone buzzed once more. I glanced at it, terrified to see what it might say. But there was no message. This time, only the app's logo, flickering and distorting on the screen. The same smile that had once been on Ethan's face now appeared, distorted and twisted, filling the entire screen. I felt a wave of nausea hit me. The app wasn't just a matchmaker. It was something far worse. It was alive. It had been manipulating me, controlling me the whole time, feeding off my fear and uncertainty. I tried to turn the phone off, but the screen wouldn't respond. The app was in the phone now, inside me, inside everything I was. I dropped the phone, horrified, as it continued to glow. The distorted face of Ethan staring back at me from the screen, growing larger with each passing second. The air around me felt suffocating. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move. I was trapped, both in the app and in my own mind. I backed away slowly, my thoughts racing. I can't let it control me. I couldn't let this thing have power over me. I had to fight back. Somehow I stumbled backward, my foot catching on something. I looked down to see a cracked and faded sign on the ground. Exit. I didn't know why, but something about it felt like a sign. I ran toward it, desperate. My feet pounded against the cold pavement, the sound of my breath growing louder in my ears. But as I reached the edge of the square, a sharp pain shot through my head. It was like a jolt of electricity, a surge of raw energy. The screen of my phone flickered, and then, for a brief moment, it went black. When I looked up, everything had changed. The world around me was different. It wasn't just the square I had been standing in, it was everything. The buildings now seemed taller, darker, their edges blurred like a poorly painted canvas. The air had a cold metallic taste to it, and the streetlights flickered in an unnatural rhythm. I turned around to find that the familiar city I'd known was gone. In its place was an endless, distorted labyrinth of streets, each one twisted in a way that felt impossible. The concrete beneath my feet seemed to stretch out endlessly, as if I was trapped inside a nightmare. I glanced down at my phone, praying for some sign that everything was normal, that this was just some kind of glitch, a bad dream. But when the screen lit up again, my heart sank. It wasn't Ethan's face anymore. It was something worse. The app's logo was pulsating, alive almost, breathing. And the text on the screen sent a shiver through me. You are the last match. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the phone as my mind scrambled to make sense of what was happening. How could this be real? How could an app, just a stupid dating app, have the power to do this? But then I remembered the message I had gotten earlier, the one that said I belonged to him now. Ethan had never been real. He wasn't just a man I had been playing into something far darker than I could ever imagine. Before I could even process the thought, the app buzzed again, a new message appearing on the screen. This one wasn't from Ethan. It was something different. You're not just a match anymore. You're part of the system. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone as far as I could, but something in me kept me rooted to the spot. The text felt like it was burning through my skin, reaching deep into my veins, crawling under my flesh. I looked around, frantic. There had to be a way out. But the streets were stretching and folding in on themselves, like I was walking through some kind of warped mirror. Each step I took, the scenery changed, warping, reshaping. It was like I was being pulled deeper into the app, deeper into whatever dark force had taken control of my life. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the end of the street, a shadow, tall and indistinct. I couldn't make out any features, but I knew it was him. No, not Ethan, whatever had taken his place now. The thing that had been behind everything. You can't run anymore. The figure's voice echoed, though it was distorted and strange, like it was coming from everywhere. At once. You're mine, all of you. I backed up, heart pounding in my chest, my head spinning. My breath came in short, panicked bursts. How had this happened? Why me? What did it want from me? The figure moved toward me, the ground beneath me shaking. With each step, it was getting closer, faster. I turned and ran again, not caring where I was going, only desperate to escape, to survive. I had no idea how long I ran this time, minutes, hours. Time didn't seem to matter anymore. The streets were endless, looping around themselves, like some sick maze. And behind me, the footsteps of the figure, no, the thing grew louder, more insistent. I could hear it. Right behind me, breathing. Grinning, I wanted to collapse. I wanted to give up. But I couldn't. I had to find a way out. I had to survive. For the first time since this nightmare had started, I realized something. There was only one way to escape this. I had to destroy the app. I pulled the phone from my pocket, the screen still glowing ominously. My fingers moved over the screen, trying to find the app, trying to get to the settings. But it was like the app didn't want to be closed. Every time I tried to shut it down, it opened again, pulling me deeper into its grasp. The figure's voice echoed again, louder now, more commanding. You can't escape me. I control everything. I could feel the app pulsing in my hand, alive, connected to me. The walls of reality were starting to bend, the world around me flickering in and out of focus. And then I saw it. The app's icon. On the screen, glowing with an eerie intensity. It was the last thing I needed to do. The only thing that could stop it. I had to destroy it. With trembling hands, I pressed the icon. The app opened one last time, and as it did, a scream echoed through my mind, a scream that wasn't mine. The screen of my phone turned black, then white. And in that moment, everything around me stopped. The streets, the darkness, the figure. Everything froze, like someone had pressed pause on the world. My phone went silent. The silence that followed was deafening. For a brief moment, I thought I had won. The app was gone. The nightmare halted, and everything was still. The streets around me were now completely motionless, as if time itself had been suspended. I stood there, my hands shaking as I held the phone, staring at the now black screen. I didn't know what was happening. Was it over? Had I escaped? Or was this just another layer to the madness? The air felt thick, heavy, almost suffocating. and the chill that had crept into my bones hadn't gone away. It was like I was stuck in some twisted version of reality. Then, without warning, the screen flickered again. I gasped, stumbling back. The phone came back to life, the app's icon reappearing, glowing on the screen. But this time, it wasn't just the app. There was something else, a message. "You can't delete me. I will never leave." I blinked. I couldn't process it. It made no sense. I had closed the app. I had shut it down. But here it was, taunting me again, its presence growing stronger with each second. Suddenly, the city around me began to shift. The streets warped again, bending and twisting in ways that felt unnatural. I tried to run, but the ground beneath me seemed to give way, pulling me in as if I was walking through quicksand. Every step I took, I was pulled deeper into the ground, into the app, into whatever twisted realm I had unknowingly entered. I looked around, desperate to find something that felt real, but nothing looked the same anymore. The buildings were no longer just tall and dark. They were monstrous, distorted, like they were alive, reaching down toward me with jagged, broken arms. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed up by the oppressive silence. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it again. The figure dot. It wasn't just a shadow this time. It had a shape tall, thin, its face hidden in darkness. But there was something about it that felt so wrong. I couldn't see its features, but I knew it was watching me. It was waiting for me. "You didn't think you could outrun me, did you?" The voice came again, deeper this time, filled with malice. "You'll never be free." I tried to move, but my body felt frozen in place, like it was being held by some invisible force. My phone buzzed once more, and I could hear my own heartbeat. As I reached for it with trembling hands, it was as if the app had become a part of me, its grip tightening around my very soul. "You belong to me now, forever." The message burned into my mind, echoing through every corner of my brain. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't fight it. The more I tried to break free, the more I felt my body sink into the ground, like I was being pulled into the dark void of the app itself. The streets were no longer streets. The buildings were no longer buildings. I wasn't in the city anymore. I wasn't even sure if I was in the real world. I was trapped in whatever this thing had created, a world built on lies, on twisted connections, on something so dark and so wrong that it felt like I was suffocating. I reached out one last time, my hand trembling, and I felt the familiar weight of the phone in my palm. I had to destroy it again. I had to break free. I couldn't let this thing win. But before I could press the app to delete it, I saw something else on the screen, a new message. "Welcome home." And with that, the world around me shattered. The ground beneath me cracked open, the sound of shattering concrete echoing in my ears. The city, no, the nightmare that had become my reality, split apart in an explosion of light and darkness. For a moment, I felt weightless, like I was falling through an endless void. The app's grip on me tightened, pulling me deeper into its abyss, into whatever this place had become. I couldn't breathe. The air was thick, like I was drowning in it. My eyes burned, the light too bright, then too dark, flashing in a chaotic rhythm that made my head spin. The app's logo filled my vision, growing larger and larger until it consumed everything, until it was all I could see, all I could feel, all I could think. And then, it was gone. For a brief moment, everything was still again. I opened my eyes, not sure what I was expecting to see. Was I still in the city? Or had I crossed over into some other dimension, some digital hell created by the app? But nothing was the same. The world around me had changed completely. The streets were gone, replaced by an endless expanse of dark void. There was no sky, no stars, no lights. Only shadows stretching and shifting like living things. The ground beneath me was soft and spongy, like I was standing on something unnatural. And then I saw it. The thing I had been trying to outrun. The figure dot. It wasn't just standing anymore. It was moving toward me, faster than I could react. I couldn't see its face, just a dark swirling mass, a void within a void. The air around me became colder with each step it took. It was like the temperature dropped so quickly, I could feel the frost creeping up my skin. "You think you can escape?" The voice came again, deep and echoing, reverberating in my bones. "You never had a choice." I backed away, my legs unsteady beneath me. I couldn't keep running. There was nowhere to go. The figure was everywhere now, its presence suffocating. The app, it wasn't just an app anymore. It was alive. And I was its prisoner. I turned, my fingers shaking as I reached for my phone again. But it wasn't there. My hands were empty. I blinked, confused. Where was it? Hadn't I just been holding it? The ground beneath me began to pulse, and I felt something warm trickle down my face. Blood? Sweat? I wasn't sure, but I couldn't focus on that. The figure was closing in, the sound of its footsteps growing louder. Each step was like a drumbeat, heavy, suffocating. And then I remembered the last message I'd seen on my phone. "Welcome home." It wasn't a message. It was a trap. I had been lured in. The app, this thing, it wasn't just some digital horror. It was feeding on my fear, on my every move, on my desperation. It was more than just an app. It was a gateway, a doorway to something darker, something worse. And I was its last victim. I fell to my knees, unable to stand any longer. My mind raced, my thoughts crashing into each other. How had I let this happen? How had I gotten here? The figure was standing right in front of me now. The void around me seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions. There was no escape, no way out. But then, as if by instinct, I reached into the darkness, searching for something, anything to fight back. And then I found it, a crack, the slightest gap in the shadow that surrounded me. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was enough. It was all I needed. I closed my eyes and, with a deep breath, reached out toward it. The moment my fingers touched the crack, something changed. The darkness around me seemed to shudder, like it was alive, like it was reacting to my touch. I felt the world shift, felt the pull of the app loosen, just slightly. The figure screamed no, it howled. It wasn't the sound of a man or a thing. It was a sound that came from the depths of something ancient, something beyond the digital realm. I felt the pressure against my chest, like I was suffocating. But I held on. I kept reaching. The crack widened, and the shadows around me began to break apart. The world shifted again, but this time, it wasn't the app controlling it. It was me. I pushed harder, and for a brief moment, I saw light. Real, natural light. The figure was gone, swallowed by the darkness, and the world around me shattered. I was free. I gasped as the light flooded my vision, blinding me for a moment, for a fleeting second. I thought I might be waking up from some terrible dream. But the weight in my chest, the residual panic crawling up my spine, told me otherwise. This was real. I was still in this world that had turned against me. The air around me felt different now. Not suffocating, but fresh, like I had stepped into the world I remembered. The familiar sounds of the city were distant, but real. The streets, the lights. It was all back. I took a step forward, feeling the solid ground beneath my feet. My hands were still trembling, but I could breathe. I could move. The phone, though. Where was it? I patted my pockets, my heart pounding as I felt nothing. Panic surged again, but then I spotted it lying on the ground, a few feet away from me. I rushed to it, my breath ragged as I picked it up. The screen was cracked, the edges of the glass jagged and dark. But it was still on. I stared at the screen, half expecting the app to pop up again, but it didn't. The app was gone, the logo, the messages, everything. I tried to calm my breathing, trying to process what had just happened. The app had taken me to some twisted version of reality, a digital hell. But now it seemed like I had made it back. I looked around, trying to make sense of my surroundings. It all seemed so real, but there was still that gnawing feeling in my gut that something wasn't quite right. I wiped the sweat from my brow, stood up, and tried to focus. I survived. I had to keep reminding myself of that. I survived, but how? How had I done it? What had I done differently this time? Then, the phone buzzed in my hand. I froze. No, not again. I opened it slowly, dreading what might be on the screen. But this time, there was no message. No app, just the home screen, the clock ticking away, the notifications from earlier, the ones I had ignored. I exhaled, feeling the tension leave my body. I was safe. I was out. It was over. I turned the phone off, wanting to rid myself of any trace of that nightmare. But as soon as I pressed the power button, the phone buzzed again. This time, more urgently. I stared at it. What was it now? What was it going to show me? I unlocked it, my heart hammering. The screen lit up, but it wasn't the app. It was a message, clear and cold. You can't erase me. I'll always find you. I recoiled, my hand shaking as I dropped the phone. It landed with a thud, the screen facing up. No, it wasn't over. The app, the thing. It was still with me. I backed away from the phone, panic rising in my chest. Was I still trapped? Was this all just part of the game? I turned and ran down the street, my legs moving on instinct. The world around me blurred, the sounds of the city fading into a low hum. I didn't know where I was going, but I had to get away from the phone, from the app, from everything that had happened. The message. The words echoed in my mind, replaying over and over. I'll always find you. It wasn't just some app. It wasn't just a digital trick. It was something more. Something alive. I ran faster, the cold wind biting at my face, but it didn't feel real. The city around me seemed to shift with each step, its familiar corners now unfamiliar, its streets stretching on endlessly, bending in ways that defied logic. I tried to make sense of it, tried to remind myself that I was free, that I had escaped. But the feeling of being hunted never left. I couldn't shake the nagging thought that the app, that thing, was still out there, waiting for me to slip up. Phone buzzed again. I stopped dead in my tracks, my heart leaping into my throat. This time, the sound was more insistent, more demanding. I had to check it. I didn't want to, but I had to. I fumbled in my pocket, pulling the phone out with shaking hands. I didn't want to look, didn't want to see anything that might drag me back into that nightmare. But I couldn't stop myself. The screen flashed brightly, showing me the same message as before. You can't escape. My blood ran cold. This wasn't real. This wasn't possible. How could it be back? Why wouldn't it leave me alone? I turned the phone off again, trying to distance myself from it. But the moment I pressed the power button, the app opened on its own. I could feel my body tense as the cold grip of panic seized me once more. The app wasn't just part of the phone. It was the phone now. It was controlling everything. And then the screen changed. It didn't just show the logo. It showed a new message, one I hadn't seen before. You've been marked. The words burned into my mind. Marked. It felt like a curse, a mark that would never wash off. I could already feel it, something darker, colder, creeping under my skin. I tossed the phone to the ground, stomping on it, smashing it into the pavement. But even as the screen cracked, as the phone shattered into pieces, I could still feel it. I could still feel the app watching me, waiting for me. You can't get rid of me. The voice. It was everywhere now, inside my head. My thoughts. It was like it had taken root in my very soul. I took off running again, my breath ragged, my legs burning. But the city around me wasn't the city I knew. The streets twisted and bent in impossible shapes, the buildings distorted, some leaning over at angles I couldn't comprehend. I couldn't outrun it. I couldn't outrun whatever had become of me. I didn't know how long I ran. hours, maybe. The sun was gone now, replaced by an eerie, artificial glow, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. The city felt like a labyrinth, a maze that was never ending. Every corner I turned, I felt the presence of something behind me. That feeling of being followed, of being hunted. It was growing stronger with each passing second, like something was closing in on me, inch by inch. And then, without warning, the world around me froze. The ground stopped shifting. The air grew still. Even my breath hung in the air, unmoving. I looked around, but there was no one there. No one behind me, no shadowy figure, no app on my phone. Just nothing. I stood motionless, unsure of what was happening. Was this another trick? Another layer to the nightmare I couldn't escape. I took a step forward. The moment my foot hit the ground, everything shattered. The city fractured again, cracking like glass. The pavement splintered. The buildings cracked open like they were made of paper, and the sky above me ruptured, revealing a pitch-black void. The feeling of weightlessness returned, pulling me into the dark abyss. I fell, and as I plummeted, the last thing I heard was that voice. "You can never leave. You're mine. Forever." I fell through the darkness, my body twisting in midair, weightless and out of control. There were no sounds, no wind, just the deafening silence of a void that stretched endlessly in all directions. The fear was like a fire, burning through my veins, my chest tightening with every passing second. I had no idea where I was or where I was going. All I knew was that this place was not real. But as I continued to fall, that thought began to fade. What if it was real? What if everything I had experienced, everything I had thought was a nightmare, was actually just the beginning? I landed hard on the ground, the impact jarring through my bones, and for a moment, everything was still. My body was heavy, my mind fuzzy, as if I had just woken up from a deep sleep. But there was no waking up. Not here. Not now. The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes was the darkness. It wasn't the kind of darkness I was used to. It was dense, suffocating, like I was surrounded by thick fog. I tried to stand, but my legs felt like jelly, my muscles trembling. I couldn't breathe properly. My chest felt tight, constricted by some unseen force. That's when I saw it again. The figure. It wasn't standing still this time. It was moving toward me, slow but deliberate, its silhouette emerging from the shadows. It was tall, too tall, and the closer it got, the more I could make out its features. But they were wrong, distorted. Its body was long and unnatural, limbs stretching in ways they shouldn't. Its face hidden by the darkness, but its presence overwhelming. I tried to move, to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. It was like I was stuck in place, unable to escape. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure stopped in front of me, so close now that I could feel its cold breath on my skin. The air around it was heavy with a deep, suffocating silence. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on, like I was suffocating on the very space between us. "You're mine." The voice echoed, but it wasn't just in my ears. It was in my mind, my thoughts, my very soul. I tried to push it out, to fight back, but it was everywhere. It was my thoughts, my fear, my very essence. Suddenly, the app's logo appeared in front of me, glowing on the ground, pulsing with an unnatural light. It was a beacon, calling me, pulling me in. I felt its pull again, stronger this time, like it had attached itself to my very being. The figure stepped forward, its face now visible in the dim light. It wasn't a face at all. It was just a black void, a hole where a face should have been. "You can never run." I tried to speak, tried to ask what it wanted, but no words came. The figure reached out toward me, its long fingers stretching impossibly far, its hand closing around my wrist. I tried to pull away, but it was like my body was frozen, my movements slow and sluggish, as if time itself had been warped. "You'll never be free," the figure said, its voice growing louder. "The app is part of you now, and I am part of the app." The ground beneath me cracked open again, and I felt the darkness pull me in. This time, I didn't fight it. I couldn't. The pressure was too much, the fear too strong. It felt like my mind was being sucked into the app, into the void where it all began, and then the world shattered. Again. I didn't feel the fall this time. I didn't feel anything. The world around me dissolved into a blur of fractured images, like pieces of a shattered mirror scattering in every direction. There was no ground, no air, no sense of space or time. Just nothing. A deep, empty blackness that swallowed me whole. For what felt like an eternity, I existed in that void, no sounds, no sensations. I couldn't tell if I was awake, if I was alive, or if this was some twisted dream. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. It couldn't be. The app, that figure. They were still with me, pulling at the edges of my mind, suffocating my every thought. Suddenly, I felt it. A tug, a jolt that sent my consciousness spiraling. I gasped, the breath sharp in my lungs. I was no longer weightless. I was somewhere. I could feel the ground beneath my feet, solid and real. But when I looked around, I wasn't where I expected to be. I was standing in the middle of the street. The city looked off. The buildings were there, but they were warped, twisted shapes like something out of a nightmare. Their windows were dark, hollow, like eyes staring out at me. There was a low hum in the air, a buzz that rattled my bones, like electricity coursing. Through the very ground I stood on, I looked down at my hands, expecting to see the cracked, broken phone still in my grip. But it was gone. My fingers were empty, my palms sweaty and trembling. I felt exposed without it, vulnerable. I tried to move, but my legs felt heavy, like they were made of lead. It took every ounce of energy to take a single step forward. Each step I took was slow, deliberate, like I was wading through thick mud. And the longer I walked, the more the world around me began to warp, the buildings twisting into grotesque shapes, the streetlights flickering and flickering again, as if they were alive. I knew then that this place, this city, wasn't real. It was just another layer of the app, another manifestation of the nightmare that had consumed me. Then came the voice. "You can never escape. You belong to me." It wasn't coming from anywhere specific, but from everywhere at once. The voice was inside my head, in my thoughts, my memories. It was as if it had been with me all along, feeding on my fear, my weakness. I stumbled forward, unable to stop myself, the oppressive weight of the voice pressing down on me. It was suffocating. There was no escape from it. I tried to block it out, but the words, those words, they kept repeating, like a broken record. "You belong to me. You will never be free." I had no choice but to keep walking. The voice had control. It always had. There was no place for me here. No way to outrun it. I was trapped in this hellish loop, this digital prison created by the app. And just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, when I felt the darkness closing in again, I saw something. A figure, standing at the end of the street. It wasn't the same figure as before. This one was different, smaller, more human. It stood there, motionless, its face obscured by a hood. But something about it felt familiar. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was something in the way it stood, something about the way it was watching me. I froze. The voice stopped. The world around me still. The figure moved, and for a split second, I thought I saw a flash of something behind its hood. Something human. Something real. Then, the figure took a step forward. The figure's movement was slow, almost deliberate, as though it had all the time in the world. My heart hammered in my chest, the panic rising in my throat like bile. There was something about this figure that unsettled me, something that didn't belong in this twisted city. It wasn't like the others, those monstrous shadows, those creatures of darkness. This one It looked human. I took a tentative step back, instinctively pulling away. But my legs wouldn't move properly. It was as if the ground beneath me was pulling me in, rooting me to the spot. The figure continued to move toward me, its eyes never leaving mine, its every step sending a ripple through the air, distorting the surroundings. Then it spoke. Its voice was quiet at first, almost a whisper, but it cut through the air like a knife. "You shouldn't be here." I couldn't tell if the voice was kind or if it was laced with something darker. It was familiar, but I didn't recognize it. The words felt like a warning, a plea, or perhaps a threat. I swallowed hard, trying to find my voice, trying to respond, but the words caught in my throat. What could I say? What was I supposed to say? The figure took another step forward, its eyes glowing faintly under the hood. There was something strange about the way it moved, something unnatural, almost as if it was glitching in and out of existence. The closer it got, the more distorted it became, like a glitch in a corrupted file. "You have to leave." The figure's voice was more forceful now. "The app, it's not what you think. You don't understand. You never did. I didn't understand. I didn't understand any of it. How had I ended up here? How had it all gotten so out of control?" But as the figure spoke, something in its tone, in its eyes, made me feel like I wasn't the one who needed to be warned. The air around me felt electric, vibrating with an energy I couldn't explain. My skin tingled, and I could hear a low, buzzing sound like static deep beneath the surface of the world. "What are you?" I asked, my voice shaky, desperate for answers. The figure paused, tilting its head slightly, as if considering my question. Then, it stepped closer, so close that I could feel its breath on my skin. "I was like you," it said, its voice quiet, but with an edge of something regretful. "I thought I could escape too, but you can't. You'll never leave." The words sent a chill down my spine. Escape? Had it once been a victim of this app too? What was it trying to tell me? How? Do I get out? I pleaded, my voice louder now, the desperation creeping into every syllable. The figure shook its head, the motion jerky, unnatural. "You can't. It's too late for you." I recoiled, my heart sinking. It couldn't be too late. It couldn't be. I couldn't let it be too late. But the figure wasn't done. It took another step forward, and with that movement, everything around us seemed to change. The city, the ground beneath my feet, it all began to twist and shift, as though the very fabric of reality was bending, folding in on itself. "You're trapped. All of us are," the figure whispered, its voice barely audible now. "We are all part of it. The app, the darkness, it consumes everything. It won't stop. It can't." I couldn't breathe. The weight of its words crushed me, sinking deep into my chest, choking the air from my lungs. The fear that had been a constant companion now felt like a suffocating blanket, wrapping itself tighter and tighter around me. But I couldn't give up. I couldn't let it win. "I won't stop," I whispered through gritted teeth, my hands clenched into fists. "I'll find a way out." The figure's lips twisted into a sad smile, the motion disturbingly slow, as if it were rehearsing the gesture. "You think you can defy it? You think you can fight something that has already won?" And with that, the figure disappeared into the shadows, leaving me alone in the broken, shifting city. But something was different now. There was a part of me that had awakened, a small, quiet flame of defiance in my chest. I didn't know how I was going to survive this, but I couldn't give up. I couldn't let the app have me. Not now, not ever. The silence after the figure vanished was suffocating. I stood there, frozen, as the world around me continued to distort, the warped buildings groaning and creaking as if alive. The hum in the air grew louder, vibrating through my body like a tuning fork, sending strange, uncomfortable shivers down my spine. I had to keep moving. I had to do something, anything to break free from this nightmare. But where would I go? The city stretched out in all directions, an endless maze of fractured streets and impossible angles. There was no direction, no clear path forward. It felt like every step I took was a step deeper into a trap, the walls of this twisted world closing in on me. And then it hit me. The app. The thing that had started all of this, it had to be the key. I had thought I had destroyed it, tossed it aside, but it wasn't gone. It couldn't be. It was part of me now. A part of this reality, this hellscape that had become my life. I reached into my pocket, the familiar panic creeping back up my throat. My phone wasn't there. I felt my chest tighten as I turned in a circle, scanning the surroundings desperately. The phone had to be here. It had to be. Without it, I was lost. And then, as if the world itself was playing some cruel joke, I saw it, lying on the ground a few feet away from me, its screen cracked and shattered. But there it was, my phone, my lifeline. I rushed to it, heart pounding, in my ears, and picked it up, almost afraid to look at it. The moment I touched the screen, it flickered to life, the app's logo appearing with a sickening glow. I felt a jolt of recognition, followed by dread. It was like I had just unlocked a door I couldn't close. The app was alive again, and it was waiting. "You are still mine." The words appeared on the screen, cold and clear, as if mocking me. I pressed my hands to my temples, trying to fight off the panic that was rising again. But I couldn't ignore the truth. I was trapped in a loop, a never-ending cycle of fear and control. The app had its grip on me. It wasn't just a digital presence anymore. It was real. It had a life of its own. It was alive, and it was feeding off my fear. "You can't escape." The app's message taunted me, the voice echoing in my mind. Suddenly, the ground beneath me shook. It wasn't a small tremor. It was violent, like the earth itself was ripping apart. I stumbled, falling to my knees, trying to keep my balance. The sound was deafening, like the whole city was about to collapse in on itself. And then, a crack appeared in the sky above me. A jagged line of blackness, splitting the air, like a wound. The void beyond it was darker than anything I had ever seen, like the very essence of oblivion. The city groaned again, and the crack widened. It was pulling everything toward it, buildings, cars, streets. Everything was being sucked into the black hole in the sky, disappearing into nothing. I felt a pull, strong and relentless, dragging me toward it. The app was doing this. It was the cause. It was consuming everything. I gripped my phone tighter, my fingers trembling, and tried to pull away from the force dragging me in. I couldn't move fast enough. My legs felt like they were being weighed down by concrete, each step heavier than the last. The crack in the sky was growing wider, and I knew that if I didn't act, I would be swallowed by the darkness too. But then, my voice screamed in my mind, louder than anything I had ever heard before. "You are stronger than this." I didn't understand where it came from, but the words gave me a burst of clarity. I had to fight. I wasn't just a victim of this app. I wasn't just a pawn in its game. I was more than that. I had survived this long, hadn't I? I slammed my fist against the ground, forcing myself to stand. The pull was stronger now, but I refused to let it take me. The app wanted me, but it didn't own me. Not anymore. I focused all my energy on the phone, trying to force the app too close to stop its control over me. I opened the settings, digging through the options, ignoring the increasing pressure of the void around me. I had to do something, anything to stop it. And then, as if by sheer will, I found it. The delete button. Without thinking, I pressed it. The screen blinked, flickering. The pull from the sky stopped for a brief moment. The black void paused, as if it were waiting for something. And then the phone went black. The app was gone. The pull was gone. I was free. I stared at the black screen of my phone, my fingers still gripping it as if it might come back to life. The world around me had stopped completely frozen, still, like the air had thickened with disbelief. The crack in the sky above me was slowly closing, its jagged edges turning into soft, swirling mist, almost like the world was repairing itself. But I couldn't let my guard down. Not yet. I took a shaky breath, trying to steady my nerves. The darkness that had consumed everything was receding, but I knew better than to trust this calm. It was too perfect, too quiet. I glanced around, every nerve on edge, but there was nothing. Just the remains of the twisted city, the warped buildings. The air still humming with strange energy, but it was fading. Whatever had been controlling this world, whatever had been dragging me into that void, was losing its power. I hoped that my body felt heavy, like I had just woken up from a nightmare I couldn't remember clearly. I stumbled forward, unsure of where I was going. But there was only one direction to go, forward. You think you've won? I froze. The voice, deep and cold, echoed from behind me. It wasn't the app's voice, not exactly, but it was something similar. Something darker. I turned slowly, my heart pounding. The figure was back. It wasn't just a figure this time. It was real, no glitches, no distortion. Just a tall, shadowed silhouette standing at the edge of the street, its presence suffocating. The space between us. You will never leave. The voice was firm, final. You are still part of it. It will never let you go. The words crawled under my skin, sinking deep into my bones, making my chest tighten in fear that it was true. No matter what I had done, the app had a hold on me, but I couldn't let it win. I couldn't give up now. I stood tall, my legs shaky but firm beneath me. I won't let it control me, I said, my voice hoarse but determined. The figure didn't respond at first. It just stood there, its glowing eyes piercing through the shadows, watching me. Then, it took a step forward. And another. You never had a choice. The figure advanced slowly, its long, unnatural limbs bending and twisting in ways that made me shudder. Each step it took echoed, reverberating through the empty streets like thunder. The city around us seemed to close in, the warped buildings pressing in like they were alive, breathing, suffocating. I tried to move, to back away, but my feet wouldn't cooperate. It was like I was glued to the ground, the force of the figure's presence pinning me down. You think you're free? The figure sneered. The app is inside you now. It's always been inside you. I could feel it again. That pull, that suffocating presence, wrapping itself around my thoughts, my heart. It was the app. It was still there, in the back of my mind, feeding on my fear. It wanted me to break, but I wouldn't. Not this time. I clenched my fists, trying to fight. The rising panic. I can fight this, I whispered to myself, more to reassure myself than anything else. I will survive. The figure's lips twisted into a cruel smile. Survival? It chuckled. You can't survive this. It doesn't matter how strong you are. It will consume you. I had to do something. Anything. I couldn't let this thing win. Then it hit me. The phone. The app had tried to control me through it, but now maybe it could be the key to destroying the figure. If I could use it against the app, if I could find a way to turn the tables. Without thinking, I raised the phone and pressed it against the air, as if it could somehow amplify my will, my defiance. No, I'm not your victim, I said, louder this time, forcing the words through the fear that threatened to swallow me whole. For a moment, nothing happened, and then a crack appeared in the figure's form, its image distorting, flickering like a corrupted file. You can't. The figure hissed, its voice warping, breaking apart. The figure lunged at me with terrifying speed, but I held the phone in front of me, praying, desperate for something, anything that would work. And then a flash. The world erupted into blinding light. For a moment, I couldn't see, couldn't breathe. It was like I was being pulled through a tunnel of pure white energy, my body vibrating as if it were being torn apart and reassembled. I screamed, but the sound was drowned out by the deafening roar of the light. And then, as quickly as it began, it stopped. I found myself lying on cold, hard ground, gasping for breath, the app's phone still clutched in my hand. The air around me felt normal, fresh. There were no shadows, no distortions, just the soft hum of a world that had somehow returned to its natural state. I slowly stood, my knees weak, my body trembling from the aftermath. I was back, but I wasn't sure where back was. I looked around. The street was real. The buildings were real. The world felt solid beneath my feet. I was in my city again, the one I recognized, the one I thought I had lost forever. The phone screen was still black, the app gone, deleted. But a single message flashed across the screen. You survived. I didn't know how. I didn't know if the app was truly gone for good, or if it would come back to haunt me. But for now, I was alive. I had survived, and that was enough.